Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah, that's me. Is I, to be more correct. Welcome to the program. It's March 20, 2023. I happen to see on Twitter it's Mr. Rogers' birthday today. I think he would have been 95 or 96. Truly the most extraordinary human being I ever had the opportunity to know. And it just, yeah. He wasn't like a regular person. He wasn't. I admittedly was never quite comfortable with him. Isn't that? I mean, that says something about me, I assure you, not him. Loved him, but he was so not like anybody that I guess, in terms of being comfortable with somebody, you have to have a sense of where they are, who they are, how they're, and he was just so unusual. I don't think I ever was quite sure. My need to please. I wasn't sure how to do that with him. And he would be appalled that was what I would be thinking in any way. So accepting was he of people as they were. Yeah. A truly remarkable person. And I miss him, and I miss Joanne, his extraordinary wife, unique and wondrous in her own right. Wow. Everybody's dead. Okay, I'll stop. I can tell. I'm in a mood today. Uh-oh, not good. Okay, everybody's dead. I happen to be looking through some videos that I had just had transferred to save them from further deterioration. Some dealing with my work, others personal. And what's mind-blowing is how everybody was dead. When you're as old as me and you look back at your life, I see dead people. I see dead people I love and loved. It's daunting. It is. Oh, dear. Okay, I'll stop. I have spent the last few days doing what I only do once a year, which is become crazed watching college basketball. I so love this thing called March Madness. Always have. I do think it is without a doubt the most thrilling, wonderful sporting event tournament that there is. And I mean, I think even if you don't think you like basketball, if you were to simply sit through or just tune it in, and I mean, it has to be a good game. I mean, there's good, these upsets, just amazing. And Pitt did us proud, did fine. Both Pitt and Penn State got knocked out this weekend, but they played strong and did okay. Anyway, I'm just totally into it. And you don't even need to have a team you're rooting for. The kids in it are just so Amazing. Amazing. I love it. What am I going to do? They don't have another game till Thursday. And this one has just been so rife with upsets that all you folks who bet on this, a lot of betting going on. I understand that there's no one in the country, I think, no one is aware of anybody who filled out a bracket that is still, alive. There will be no person in the whole country that picked all these games correctly, or I would imagine even came close. Unbelievable. Love it. I love it. Okay, I'll stop. I'm in a Monday mood. What does that mean? Well, I don't know. We'll never think of Donald Trump as somebody who I look to for truth, information, but he said tomorrow he's going to be arrested. He might be right. I don't know. I have not a clue, but it appears imminent. And I mean, the histrionics, let alone the history that will surround the arrest and arraignment of the first president of the United States, the first either sitting or former. And that's never happened. Big. But that it's this tawdry, paying hush money to a porn star, that it's this tawdry thing and not something seemingly more consequential does bother me. But there are so many future indictments. I mean, this is just going to be the first one to drop, right? The hush money payment, I hope it's not the first trial. I don't know. He could also be charged with fraudulent keeping of books. Then, the Mar-a-Lago stuff, that looks pretty, he could be charged with a ton of stuff there. Obstruction, unauthorized retention of national security documents, mishandling of official documents, contempt of court, and conspiracy to make false statements, which is something he could be, arrested for any given hour of any given day. And then the Georgia election law case, to me, that's the one. That's the one I'd like to see go first, because it addresses the true stench of his presidency, the attempt to literally overturn the election. I mean, he could be charged under RICO for that, although RICO is a federal thing, but it's, I guess, Georgia has essentially a RICO law as well. And, getting him on racketeering would be sweet, since he's a crook. And we even haven't said anything about, could he be indicted because of January 6th? Yeah, he could. A lot of possible, things there. And the January 6th committee made clear that they thought there should be criminal indictments, not just him. Obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and let us not forget insurrection. So the fact that the Stormy Daniels thing is first in the dock is, I guess, fitting in the tawdriness of it, because there's never been a more tawdry, good word, a more tawdry presidency. I know there's a great deal of concern that he's already calling, just like he did on January 6th in the morning, and with tweets prior to, he's already calling on his thugs to take back the country, save me. And it'll be interesting to see if the deranged followers of this tawdry ex-president will show up in the streets again. We'll see. Part of me is almost hoping they will. And that's a terrible thing to say, but I'm being honest. I'm admitting it. Just for the sheer, the show, seeing awful people behaving awfully. But I wouldn't want anybody, like any cops or other people, hurt. So, can I back up and come back locally to something I don't quite understand and don't quite even know how to talk about? So this might not take real long or anything, because I don't know if I can talk coherently about it. I've been reading what I can find about it, but it's just so tawdry again. It's politicians behaving badly. It has to do with with John Weinstein, Stein, the county treasurer who wants to be the county exec and is facing a primary coming up, and all this stuff that's breaking about him. He clearly has a lot of people in the county who don't want to see him get to that top spot. That's obvious. But either he's lying or they're lying. I can't, you know what? And I don't know. There are some things that are known that have come out that nobody's lying, but it's not. It's that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, was nosing around about his doings in the when he was on the board of Alcosan. And a lot of what's going on now is around that. He's on the board. The FBI starts asking questions about. It's unclear about things that Weinstein seen. God damn it! Will somebody tell me which one it is? I know I could see one of his ads and get it in my head, but I don't know. But the fact that the FBI was looking into whether or not he was involved in some shady dealings while he was a member of Alcosan Sewer Authority, which is perfect, right? Yeah, some stinky stuff on the sewage authority. And he had been put on the authority by the county executive, Rich Fitzgerald, who, after the FBI started snooping around, I guess, wanted him off. And that created this story now in which accusations are being made of all kinds of, unethical things going on to get him back on the board. And they involve other local office holders, and somebody's lying. I mean, more than one person is probably lying. It shows that the sort of, I don't know. This is why I said I'm not going to be coherent about it. But there's something, again, tawdry. It's a kind of behavior, whether we can quite put a finger on it or not, that suggests people who are entrusted, given the public trust to do an important job, are instead involved in petty payback politics, patronage. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your stuff. That never looks good when it's outed. But that so much of this stuff has kicked up and involves him, even though he's the one who's got like 3 times the amount of money of the next possible county executive. He's the big money is behind this guy. He's connected in that way. All the more reason not to elect him. I'm sick of big money owning everything, including our government. I'm sick of it. I want somebody who's not connected. I want somebody who's not known to have learned how to play the game and has people indebted to him here, there, and everywhere. I don't want that person. I want somebody coming in who wants to be progressive leader of this county. And it ain't this guy. I'll tell you that much. I've been gunning for him ever since I had to write a check to him every goddamn year. And even that is disgusting. I hope that the next county treasurer will stop that and will have us not make out checks to him or her, but rather to the county. This guy's an operator. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of operators. Thank you, Chris. In this commercial, it's pronounced Weinstein. Okay. Weinstein. Well, as for who should be, I have not a clue. The 2 people I have to admit that I would put as 2 people that if they either one, I would not be appalled or horrified. And that would be Michael Lamb and Sarah Inamorado. Both strike me as relatively clean pals, and I don't know. So I just hope this Weinstein that this bad publicity negates the money that he's throwing at this. Because you're not, is anyone seeing any ads from anybody else? No, because they don't have the money. So he's out there, and the name recognition from everybody having to write the damn checks year after year after year is, off the rails. It's huge. Off the rails is not the correct terminology there. So whatever. God, I don't want him to win. And God, I don't want Zappala to win DA. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you all. Could we start correcting stuff? Huh? Move these old boys out. Move them out. And I'll tell you, this is the fact that there's a strike at the Post-Gazette. This is when you see the importance of a local newspaper. Local newspapers are the watchdogs for us, telling us what's really going on. I mean, if they're doing their job. And not having a paper now that is able to function properly. And let me explain. The Post-Gazette is still putting out a paper, but almost no one in office, certainly on the Democratic side, will speak to any of the scab reporters who are filling the paper now, because that is akin to crossing the real reporter's picket line. And so we have this story, but the people involved, I'm sure some are very happy to hide now and say, well, I can't cross the picket line, I can't talk. But it's very unclear now. I mean, I think this is where nonprofit news is our only hope. And I speak of NPR, of WESA here, with our former pal Chris Potter, doing work, good work. Their news team is stepping up, and you can get news there on this. And you can also get news from City Paper, Pittsburgh City Paper. And Pittsburgh City Paper is a nonprofit, although they didn't intend to be. Same thing. Same thing. And then another true nonprofit called Public Source. And they're doing just wonderful reporting. And you can give money to all of these entities, which I do, but they will not ask you for it. And it's our only hope that those of us who understand the importance of being able to get information, not propaganda, information, is so vital to a functional democracy and a functional community. So, just saying, give money. Or at least that's where you go to read it, okay? But trying to make head nor tails out of this. I mean, the fact is, I'm looking at a piece I believe Chris Potter wrote, and to try to understand this story, because it's so petty and tawdry, it's not a fun story to read. It's the kind of thing where most people's eyes start rolling around and, they tune out. I don't know. I read some of this to you, but just, you got to get this at WESA, at their news, and at Public Source, and at Pittsburgh City Paper. That's where I would suggest you get it. So, I lost my. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Monday. It's Monday. I'm not. I'm gonna be unhappy all day because of this bumbling effort. Okay. Here's something from Trib Live as well. There is that source that Weinstein denies. He denies that there were any deals attempted in so he could stay and then get back on the Alcazan board. So I don't know. And this thing also engulfs a member of the county board that I had respected. And now I'm wondering, is she telling the truth or is she lying? Because it turns out she's pals with him, and I'm shocked at that. And that is the woman, why am I blanking on her first name? Is it Bethany Hallam, who has done so much to bring attention to our county jail, because she sits on that oversight board. And she herself spent time in jail. She's got a very interesting history. But she supposedly was, operating for Weinstein, approaching another member of the board, asking that member to resign so that he could get that. It is just, gotta tell you, it's not a fun story. It's not easily understood. There's too many people involved, and it's tawdry. So, I know most of you don't give a damn, but Macron in France, I'm just going to say this, I wasn't intending to, is doing something very courageous for a leader. He's defied the people, and I believe his own parliament, and I think there's a no confidence vote coming out. He could be out because he's trying to keep their retirement fund solvent by raising the retirement age in France to 64 from 62. And it's so rare to see a president or anybody in charge doing something so potentially threatening to their own power because they think it's the right. Obviously, they're not doing it be politic because it could cost them their power. I find it I find that interesting, and just wanted to note it. And I don't know if you saw. So while we're all laughing at the French freaking out, and the garbage is piling up on the streets, all the workers are on strike because they might not get to keep retiring at 62. And let us also note that they don't even work a 40-hour week. And they get tons of vacation and all kinds of, they get so much from the government. It's, to an American, it's like truly unbelievable what other countries do for their people. So at the same time that the French are in the streets because they don't want to have to wait till 64 to retire. Did you see what the South Korean government did? I've been meaning to talk about this last week and never got around to it. Talk about culture and talk about differences in culture. The South Korean president suggested raising the legal cap on how many hours a Korean worker could work. This is not with overtime. Just an employer, they were going to increase it to 69 hours a week. 69 hours a week. I mean, what? It's currently 52, which is already, okay, that's already 12 hours over what Americans hard-working Americans think of as a normal work week. So the South Koreans are at 52, and the government doesn't say, let's raise it to 60, which would be bad enough. But 69 decides that another 11 hours a week piled on top of the 52 a South Korean workers already working isn't such a bad idea. Good God. So I did see a little item today that there has been, even the South Koreans got really pissed off about this. And so the government is saying, well, maybe, so it's not a done deal. And they're sort of like walking back a little bit. But the average South Korean worker works an average of 1,915 hours a year. Okay. The average American worker, 1,791 hours. And the French, 1,490. Man, the French have a 35-hour work week. And they're ready to burn the entire place down because now they're being told they have to maybe work to the age of 64 to be able to collect the incredible benefits that their government promises them. God! A lot of Americans would say, hey, man, I would take the thing you're free. I would take that in a second. Been hearing a lot about a book, and I want to share it with you. It's called Poverty by America. B-Y, Poverty by America. And it's written by a guy who makes an extraordinary case that the poverty, the persistent and even worsening poverty in this extraordinarily wealthy country is such a disgrace. And the fact that we do not feel shame about it says something about all of us. He also clearly points his fingers. It's not a Republican Democrat thing. He points it at all of us. And he's right. It's a case I've tried to make for a long, long time. Because we all benefit from keeping so many of our fellow Americans in poverty. And we've agreed to the deal if we're benefiting. And that has to do with wanting cheap, wanting, fast, cheap, all this stuff. And the only reason you get cheap stuff is the people who make it or are doing the service aren't getting paid what they should be if they're living in poverty. So this guy, his name, by the way, is Matthew Desmond. He says that this enduring poverty in America, yes, is the product of, deindustrialization and just institutions falling apart. But it really is, and here's where we've always let ourselves off the hook, but it's really because of choices that we as a people make. especially we, the more fortunate people, make. So he says poverty persists in this country because so many of us have, some fully aware of it, some just blissful in their ignorance and refusal to be self-aware of it, still opt for the status quo because we benefit from its perpetuation. Yeah. So, it comes from employers paying workers less than minimum wage. It comes with, my God, the minimum wage in this country not having been raised since 2009. That is it. I've often called this country cruel. It is. But it's also shameful. There is no way you could make a case for not having the federal minimum wage increased since 2009. And if you're poor, man, we dump on the poor. Just the other day when I was reading you my medical, bills, that I have $17,000 in medical stuff, and what do I owe? Nothing. System working fine for me there. The only person who would have to pay the $17,000 would be somebody who couldn't afford insurance, and of course, could never pay. So they go into medical debt, which destroys your life. This is what we do to our fellow citizens. Our tax code is all about helping the rich and putting it to the poor. The housing market, the homelessness problem that is increasing in this country, where people, even making, what used to be a serviceable wage, cannot find housing. So this guy says poverty isn't simply the condition of not having enough money. It's the condition of not having enough choice and then being taken advantage of because of that. Even to cash the paltry check you get, you have to pay somebody to cash the check. I've never paid anybody to cash a check. But here's where he puts it to some of us. Progressives. Upper middle class Americans, many of them proud progressives, are complicit in keeping the poor poor. Affluent families benefit from tax breaks on their mortgages and college savings plan, leaving less revenue for programs that serve those in greatest need. Like taxes. I don't want our taxes to go up. Fuck all those hungry little kids whose shoes are worn out. Yeah, screw them. I don't want to pay more taxes. And the fact that then we still seek out convenience and the lowest prices with no regard for the labor abuse, the abuse of people that makes those low prices and convenience possible. He says Democrats are more likely than Republicans to champion public housing in the abstract, but among homeowners, they are no more likely to welcome housing developments in their own backyards. Above a certain income level, we all become segregationists. You know, it's what I thought. I think progressives had a lot to do with destroying public education in this country by abandoning the public schools. The public schools in the city, in the wrong places, and opted instead for the public schools in the suburbs. And that white flight, which knew no political, party. There was Republicans and Democrats. Because after all, my child, I'm not going to have my child not get ahead. It's always for the school district. You know, when somebody moves here to Pittsburgh, the real estate agents, if they've got children, school-age children, they don't even suggest that somebody live in the city. Anyway, we know how to help people. We refuse to do it. And I don't know. This book's getting a lot of play, and it's because he's telling the truth. And it's a truth people don't want to acknowledge. You know, somebody pointed out that when the pandemic hit, the government did step up and expanded the child tax credit, unemployment insurance, emergency rental assistance, didn't let landlords throw people out on the streets. And you know that in 6 months of all of those actions being taken during the pandemic, child poverty was cut in half. And do you know that we're now taking it all back? Pandemic's over, so let all those children go right back into poverty. That's our country doing that. That's with a Democrat in the White House. I'm just saying. Poverty persists in this country because we benefit from it. And God knows we got the money to stop it. But we choose not to. And that says something about us that I wouldn't exactly go around advertising. I don't know how many of you saw this amazing piece in yesterday's New York Times. I had a friend send it to me like early in the morning, and she's just raving about it. She says, "This is journalism. My God, read it." You know, and I read it. And it was about a homeless encampment in Phoenix, Arizona, which sits right next to a sandwich shop, Old Station Subs. And the couple that founded that little sandwich restaurant have been working their tails off for decades. Old Station Subs. It was going to be their entire life. It was going to allow them to raise their kids, send them to school, retire, and it was going well. So a reporter goes in and he does a piece on the sandwich shop owners and their neighbors, the homeless. And it is the most searing, extraordinary piece of journalism because you get sucked right into the reality. And my friend and I were sort of talking about what makes the piece so extraordinary. And we came down to one word: respect. It was so clear that the reporter respected every human being he wrote about, no matter whether they were, the kind of people that would normally get respect. Of course, the homeless are not people who get respect. But it is a searing piece. And again, it tells us something about this country that is so appalling. The amazing thing about these two people who aren't going to, the value of their restaurant has plummeted. You can't sell it. They're surrounded by chaos and terror sometimes. There are an average of 8 incidents a day in that area. There were at least 1,097 calls for emergency medical help. There were 500 plus fights or assaults, 236 incidents of trespassing, 185 fires, 140 thefts, 125 armed robberies, 13 sexual assaults. The remains of a fetus burned and left next to a dumpster. 2 people stabbed to death. 16 others found dead from overdoses, suicides, hypothermia, or excessive heat. And there are thousands of people in this one encampment in a city in the United States of America. And these poor folks happened to locate their sandwich shop there decades and decades before this encampment arose. And it arose relatively recently because Phoenix, like so many other cities in this country, has seen the rents for an apartment just skyrocket. They've risen 80%, more than 80% in the last 2 years. And that meant people were being thrown out onto the streets. We do nothing. And the amazing thing about these two people, the husband and wife who own this place, they're so good. I think it'd be a rare person who would maintain their caring or kindness, living with what they live with, because they live with something that would terrify me and horrify me. And the article says they agreed, as this encampment grew and grew, that it was their job to be Christly, to offer not only compassion, but help. So they too treat these people with respect, even as these people's very existence threatens to send them into poverty because they're going to lose their restaurant. And it's everything they have. They've given out water. They've opened their bathroom. They cash unemployment and disability checks at no cost to the people. They've hired some of these people. A cleaner who slept a few blocks away on a wooden pallet was allowed to wash up in the bathroom before her shift because that's the only place she could. I don't know. You know, I know it's depressing, right? This is your country. It's your country. Gigi writes, glad to hear you talk about that piece. It was an incredible piece of journalism. What a shameful situation. It's difficult to believe this is happening in this country, and nothing is done. No raises in the minimum wage. Rents keep going up. Shameful. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. In that regard, again, we're exceptional. We are exceptional in the world of wealthy nations for tolerating what we tolerate, the debasement of our fellow citizens. Barbara sent me this. In July, we drove from New York to California over 10 days to relocate for family and work. And every city we stopped, Springfield, Madison, Omaha, Colorado Springs, Santa Fe, Flagstaff, the motels around the highway were surrounded by homeless encampments. The first couple nights, it just seemed like an extension of the homeless situation in New York. But as we got deeper into the country, the homeless encampments persisted. The people we saw wandering the streets around the motels and off-ramps were the same as described in this article. Most of them were 40 or younger, all races, 50-50 gender split, some with children and pets. We saw fights, people zonked out, we heard screaming, gunshots. The impression we were left with after the drive was that the U.S. homeless crisis is way bigger than most of us are aware, and it is not being talked about. There is a large, growing population of homeless in every part of the country. The college town we moved to has a big homeless population with multiple encampments. People live in their cars in our middle-class neighborhood. We give them money and food when we can. The parks in town have homeless people sleeping in them night and day. Abandoned shopping carts are everywhere. Is it not in the national interest to find and fix this crisis? Well, yeah, it is. Isn't it something? You know, this reads, when you think about this, because we're talking about encampments of people who have no shelter, no security, no access to food or medicine or anything. And they're everywhere in this country, in these growing encampments. Respectable people don't want to see them, don't want to deal with it, right? And that only makes worse and grows it. You know, these are the kind of pictures of America that I haven't seen since the Great Depression. This kind of poverty in America is not unlike the Depression. And what happened in the Great Depression? Our government moved to help. Not so much anymore, partially because we have a Congress that won't act. Well, again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this is not happy. But my program does have to deal with the reality that we live in. And whoa. There was another interesting little piece I saw which almost ties in. The hollowing out of urban public education by progressive white flight resulted in this sort of apartheid public education system. One, underfunded because funded by property taxes, right? Where people already left behind are further denied the ability to move ahead. We're geniuses at knowing not only how to keep people down, but how to push them further. And it's by our actions, by our choices. But the other weird side of the coin is that when all these studies being done about how stressed our children are now, and they are, the most stressed used to be children in poor neighborhoods. Well, that ain't the case anymore. This is interesting. The most anxious, depressed children in America are rich kids in high achieving schools. The children of all of those high-minded folk who ran to the suburbs and that education so their children would get ahead. And you know what? Their kids are suffering more mental illness than kids living in poverty. Because they are under extraordinary pressure to get good grades, to get high SAT scores, to get admitted to the right schools. And this is from a study that is reputable. This is from a piece that was in the Atlantic. It's about the extraordinary rise of teen mental distress, but a large part of it is the pressure cooker schools and the pressure cooker parents. And what are they teaching their kids? That your self-worth has to do with good grades, the right school. What a sick, sick virtue. What a sick culture. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I had a sense I had a lot of unhappy stuff in me today, but I can't help it. It's the way it is. Maybe Susan and I can lighten things up tomorrow. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, the sun's shining. Have a good day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.